Hi, and welcome to episode 64 of the Online Course Creator Show. It's Lou Blakely here, your host, and I'm very happy to be back with this episode today. If you are someone that listens to the podcast regularly, you probably have noticed that I've been a little bit missing in action lately on the podcast, and I'll dive into that in a little minute. But today I wanted to actually talk about a topic or a blog post that I wrote in 2016. And recently when I was shifting over my website, I've got a new website which you can check out at loublakely.com. When I was shifting it over, I had to move all of the blogs over and that kind of thing. And I found this blog post and I started having a read of it and I started to think, now this is crazy. I wrote this in 2016. At the time, it was a really popular blog post. I remember I shared it in a business network Facebook group that I was in, and everyone in there loved it. It had so many comments and people really enjoyed it. So I thought I'd reshare it for that factor. However, one thing that really struck me was how similar the things that I put in this blog post, how relevant they still are from 2016 to now. The fact that these are all still relevant actually blew my mind, considering all of the new things that we have in the online space since then. Like, most of what we have now didn't really exist. Like, Instagram was big then, but it wasn't as big as it is now. We didn't have TikTok. We didn't have lots of different things, right? And we didn't have short form content, really. It was all more longer form content. And that's really the strategy that you used back then to build trust. And Facebook groups, of course, were massive, whereas I don't really think that they are anywhere near on that scale anymore. So the blog post that I wrote is called Small Business Marketing, 23 Things You Need to Know. So I thought it was really also applicable to share this before the year end, because obviously it's 2023 and this is 23 things you need to know. I'm actually going to go through the 23 things today because I think it's quite fun, and also I just can't get over how relevant 99% of it still is. And I'm just going to change it to 23 things you need to know as a course creator. They are still relevant to any small business owner, of course. However, I'm going to talk about it in the context of an online course creator, because obviously that's who I work with now, whereas I used to work with everyone. So where have I been? Well, I, in November, had to rush off to New Zealand because my aunt, who was very close to me, and she's been sick for a while, and Mum rang me up one day and said, if you want to see her before she passes, now's the time. And I literally got on a plane and flew over there within a couple of days' notice, and luckily I was so fortunate to see her and have a good conversation with her before she passed away. And then I ended up coming back here. I didn't go to the funeral because I'd just been over there, which was devastating for me. But now, it just kind of threw me off, that whole situation, not in business, but it threw me off the podcast. And I was actually reflecting on why before I recorded this show today. And if you've been listening for a while, you know that I've been talking about how to become consistent when you don't consider yourself to be consistent, and how I really favor batching podcast episodes. And I think this is just reconfirmation to me that that is the best strategy for me. It works really well for me. And when I don't do it is when I get out of rhythm and the recording of the podcast starts to feel really difficult. I really, really, really love the feeling of having episodes batched, created, produced in advance, and them all just sitting there in my hosting account, and I know that they're sorted. And I think this can work for any type of content. It can work for social media, blogging, podcasting, whatever it is you're doing, wherever you have to create content for, I've just really realized that batching is so key. And I used to be so resistant of it. And it's funny because when I mention to people that batching is the way to go now, I always get pushback. Oh, yeah, but it's so hard to do. I know I should do that, but yeah, it's just seems overwhelming. And to that I say, a process is definitely key. And I have a very, very good process when it comes to podcasting. And planning is also key, like knowing exactly what you've got to do when. I've also realized that I thrive on having days when I wake up and I do not have to show my face. I do not have to use my voice. I can literally just do what I need to do with my clients and do what I need to do in terms of like delivering to them, like my paying customers. But I guess they're like marketing free days where there's no pressure to show up anywhere, but then still have content going out. I feel like that's like the boss move, right? It is such to me, that feels like a massive achievement, and it feels like a really it's like freedom. It's a really free feeling for me. So I hadn't batched because I had to go in a rush to New Zealand. I did have one episode up my sleeve, which I pushed out, which was the last one. And then I came back and I was just like so out of the momentum because I didn't have them batched, and then every week kind of went by and I didn't have any episodes going out, and then it became harder and harder and harder to get back into it. And maybe you can relate to that. Maybe you know what that feels like where, it starts to get a little bit more unattainable to just jump back in there. And really, and I don't know whether it's because, of grief or anything like that, but just not really feeling like I wanted to pull up the microphone and start talking. Just had a creative block about what to even talk about. I mean, it all seems so irrelevant compared to something like that happening, So I don't know. It was just a really interesting time. And then I have to say this week I've just been like, it's the week before Christmas. Everyone's winding down and I'm like, right, it's time for action. And that also actually happens to me. So that's where I've been. And I guess my lessons around that is really, and maybe you can take away these lessons for yourself, is that batching works so well. It's just about creating the planning and the system to actually make it happen. And it's when we fall out of those systems that it becomes a huge effort to get back in the game. Whereas if we have that batching process and we're staying in it and we maybe have one day a month set aside to do this stuff and we get that done and completed, then the feeling on the other side of that is just phenomenal. And also the results are phenomenal, right? So yeah, that's my lesson and I'm sharing it with you today. So hopefully that helps you or serves you in some way. So let's dive into the 23 things that you need to know as a course creator. And I'm actually going to share the original blog post in the section below. So wherever you're listening to this, if you just read the description, you'll see the link in there. I'll put it straight in there and in the show notes as well. So you can have a read of that. But I think that even you will be like, wow, these are so true, right? So the first one is you'll never be done with marketing. So too many business owners think that they can run a campaign, the dollars roll in, and that's it. I don't need to do any more marketing for the rest of the year. And this is so not true. Marketing is the lifeblood of your business, and if you expect those dollars to roll in continuously, you need to continually invest in marketing that works. Your business will simply reach new stages where you'll make more money to invest and you can start trying new things. Now, isn't that more true for launches as well? Like, there's no limit to how often you can launch. It just depends how often you want to launch, okay? Now, the second one is your face is the most important ingredient. So people want to do business with people. I believe it's the smaller businesses that definitely have an advantage here over big corporations, and it's time for you to own that. That is definitely still true. Now, number 3 is start before you're ready. Now, this is definitely true. I need to stop saying that. They're all true, okay? I think there's one in here that I think is maybe I would reword it. So, but what I say here is even if you're not entirely sure on what you're going to be selling, the more you talk to people about what their needs are and the more value you're going to learn about what they actually need. So even if you're unclear of what your offer is, start posting, start sharing your thoughts, start getting out there and start talking to people who may be interested in your offer and find out what they actually need, because it's when you can marry that with what your expertise, that you get amazing offers that are just a no-brainer. And I think that's more important than ever. Number 4 is stop caring what others think of your business. I love this. It is really time to stop caring about what anyone thinks, what those people from high school think, what your mum and dad think, what your extended family think, what your brothers and sisters are going to say to you on the family holiday. Let's stop caring about what they think, because that care about what they think is really only going to hold you back. Now, number 5 is don't seek advice from friends and family. So when it comes to business, the vast majority of people have never started their own and don't understand the challenges that it brings. They usually have very little appreciation for how hard it is and what an accomplishment it is to actually get something up and running and supporting yourself financially. That is a huge feat, and it is so much more difficult than simply going to get a job and getting a paycheck, right? There's a reason why everyone on the planet isn't working for themselves, okay? It's not easy. And yeah, I just think it's really, we need to celebrate that more, but also let's not take advice from people who don't run businesses, because really quite often they're just sharing stuff based on their judgments. I mean, it's different if maybe your parents are entrepreneurs and they've got a wealth of business experience and you go to them and you actually ask for advice based on their experience. I think that's different. But generally speaking, if the people around you are not running their own businesses, they haven't been successful in their own businesses, then they're not the right people to seek advice from. Instead, go to someone who actually has the experience, whether that's a free or like a paid situation like a coach. Number 6 is to find like-minded people who are experiencing the same things as you when it comes to growing a business. Now, I think this is key, and I guess this ties into number 5 as well. So it's about building that support network around you and sharing your frustrations with someone who gets it, maybe having a laugh about something that happened, maybe even talking about like a messy situation that you found yourself in. I have quite often been in like free masterminds. And what I mean by that is like a group of online business owners. It's usually been 4 of us, and we meet once a month and we just use each other to bounce things off, to bounce ideas off. But the other side effect of this is you actually become really good friends with each other. Some of my best friends are people who I've met online and in these mastermind groups. And I really think that if you maybe don't have the budget for a coach or a group coaching program, then setting up something like this can pay dividends just to have people in your corner. Like, they don't need to be coaching you at all. It's just more around having support, like-minded people around you, and someone to reach out to. Now, number 7 is you can throw all your money at it, but it won't automatically make it a success. Now, I love this one. It was true then and it's true now. If you have an offer that nobody wants, it does not matter how many Facebook ads you invest in to get people to look at it. They will just head to the page, read the offer. If it doesn't appeal to them, they don't like it for whatever reason, then they're just going to leave, right? The more people looking at your stuff does not necessarily mean that they're going to buy it. Sure, we need traffic. We need probably more traffic than most people are getting. You know, if you've got a small audience and you're just starting out and you are getting some sales, then, you know, that's a traffic problem, not an offer problem. But in this context, like, if you don't have a good offer, that's really what you need to fix before you can spend any money on any type of marketing investment and expecting it to work. Because if people aren't buying your offer on a small level with a small audience, then people aren't going to buy it once more and more people see it. You actually have to fix the offer first and then come up with their traffic strategy. So I hope that makes sense. Offer first. Offer has to be on point before it's worth really investing too much in your marketing, because just simply spending money on marketing is something that anyone can do. But if the offer's not great, that's not really going to have any impact and you're just going to waste a lot of money. Now, number 8 is nothing is free, even if you think it is. And I go on to say your most valuable currency is time. While you may not want to pay someone to manage your social media and think you can do it all yourself, how much time are you really spending on it that could be spent doing things you're better at? Now, that is so true, and I actually go on to use my example of hiring a house cleaner so that instead of worrying about cleaning the house, I just know that it's getting done once a week instead, and I can also spend that time that I would be cleaning actually working. So it doesn't necessarily mean to be outsourcing to someone in your business. It could be that you're outsourcing jobs in your life that very much do not give you any joy and also are taking you away from tasks where you could be making way more money. Now, I also think it's really important with this one that nothing is free in terms of our time, like our time is valuable. So we've got all these social media tools that are free that we get to spend lots of time on, and I believe it's a really amazing, these are really amazing tools to have at our fingertips. I mean, that literally 10 years ago barely even existed, right? So we have all of these free ways to market our business, but also we're spending the time on there because they're free, but our time is worth money. Our time is currency. So if you're spending all week on Instagram, what else are you not doing? Like, what could you be doing instead of that in terms of putting offers together, actually doing stuff that's going to make you more money? You know, and I think a lot of people have mastered this since then. But, you know, for many people, are spending a lot of time scrolling on social media, maybe researching trends, getting ideas for content, but then never actually going through with it. So putting a lot of time and investment of time into spending time on social media, but you're not actually getting anything back from it. Now, that's, yes, it's free. It's not costing you anything monetarily, but actually it's costing you a lot when you think about opportunity cost, what you could potentially be spending that time on instead of scrolling. That could actually be making you more money. Also on this, I think it's important to point out that sometimes you are better to actually invest in ads rather than spending your time on social media marketing. Because once you've set up the ads, yes, you need to be tweaking them, that kind of stuff, creating content for it, but it's not like you're on that constant wheel of creation like you are with the free social media content. And, you know, back when I wrote this blog post, you used to be able to post something on Facebook and people would be seeing it days later, and that is just not the case anymore. You know, on Instagram, it's like a couple of hours now before your posts stop getting seen, especially with engagement like it is at the moment. So you really need to weigh up, where is your time best spent? Are you better using some of your money to buy your time back? Now, number 9 may not make sense when I first read it out, especially in context to the last one, but I want to explain it. So number 9 is don't outsource your marketing and think you'll never have to think about it again. So I wrote this from the context of someone at the time who was providing done-for-you digital marketing services. Quite often what I noticed at this stage was that people would come and hire me and then they would expect to vanish into thin air and I'd just take it from there and they would never have to think about their marketing again. They wouldn't even have to care about it. They'd just have money rolling in the door and they'd be off having all of their time back and literally not give it another thought. However, what I was saying here is that this is a really flawed approach if you're outsourcing your marketing. So yes, you are the expert in your industry if someone comes and hires you to do this, like I was at the time. And maybe, I don't know, it depends what you are doing. But just because someone's paying you for your expertise doesn't mean that whoever hires them then gets to walk away and not take any responsibility, not have input, not share ideas. Like, a really good relationship is one that's collaborative when you hire someone. And I think that's really important. I mean, in hindsight, I wasn't coaching at this point. It was really done for you. I did do some consulting, but it was mainly done for you. And the clients who hired me and then just disappeared were the ones that didn't really do that well. And actually, they weren't that committed to their business. They just wanted to pay and think their problems would be solved, which takes me back to the number 7, which is you can throw your money at it, but it won't automatically make it a success. So I don't know how you would put that in the online course context, but I think it would be more of actually as someone providing online courses, an online course creator, and you're outsourcing to a VA or something like that. And this is actually something I do see happen quite a lot, is quite often you'll hire VAs who have got no experience what you want them to do, which is something I see often, and then kind of leaving them to their own devices, thinking that they can do it, and then just leaving them to it, and then coming back and realizing that quite often that they've disappeared. And that is quite often a result of this, I think, being thrown in the deep end with something that they don't know how to do, or they simply just haven't done the job anywhere near up to the standard that you expected of them. I think when you hire a VA, as this example, you need to make sure that they're qualified. And I mean by qualified, I mean that they have the experience to do what you need them to do, so they know how to do it, right? And potentially even ask them for examples of them having achieved that for someone else, rather than paying them and expecting them to then go and train themselves. Now, the flip side of this is I really do think it's important as an online course creator to be looking at how you can outsource your marketing. You've just got to use the right people for the right jobs. And that is actually, I have a bonus on this inside Launch and Thrive, my online course, actually, because it's something that I see coming up again and again, is like being upset at VAs or expecting them to do strategy when they're not a strategist. Like, that's what people hire me for in my VIP days. And, I've got 15 years experience working online. So you cannot expect a VA who potentially has just started up in the last few years and really does administration tasks to be your strategist or your social media queen. The expectations, you've just got to keep them in check. And sometimes we actually do need to take responsibility as the owner of our business to make sure that people are doing what they say they're going to do. And that happens really when we've actually hired the right people for the right jobs, and, potentially even fired people pretty quickly when we've realized they aren't doing the right job. And that quite often what happens in our business in terms of staff that we're hired or help that we've hired and it hasn't gone to plan is usually a reflection of how we've managed them. And we have to take responsibility for that. So it is very similar to my initial number 9, which is don't outsource your marketing and think you'll never have to think about it again. So don't outsource anything and think you'll never have to think about it again, because at the end of the day, this is your business. You are the boss of your business. You are a business owner. You don't need to micromanage everyone, but you definitely need to make sure you've got the right people in the right roles doing the right things. And, this does improve over time. But you absolutely just can't outsource things and walk away from it and expect to not care and not hear about it again, never have issues arise from that. It's just not realistic, okay? And long-term success will come in when you actually step into that CEO role and really drive the business to a really high standard to get the results that you want. Number 10 sounds contradictory to that, and it's don't outsource until you've really got the funds. So as a course creator, I feel like this might be one that I may not agree with so much anymore. So I wrote this in 2016, as I mentioned. So this is definitely true, I think, if you are hiring for done for you, which I was doing at the time. So quite often I would have people sign up with me. They would say, yeah, like I can commit to the 3 months, and then maybe after 1 month, they just actually couldn't make it work. So you're not going to see results unless you are, you have the funds to actually keep going. Whereas with a launch, I think it's a one-off project, especially your first launch, to get a lot of stuff up and running. So you can outsource on like a project basis versus a ongoing retainer type basis. So sometimes it's actually worth investing more than you think you can to get your time back, to put it into creating the offer, doing the marketing, getting out in front of as many people as possible, and that kind of thing. So kind of agree with this, not entirely. Now, number 11, consistency is the secret to marketing success. It's those businesses who show up every single day that achieve success and from the outside look like the latest overnight success. This is definitely still true. Oh my God, I've just realised something. This is so funny. There's no number 12. So I've written this thing about 23 things every small business owner, every course creator needs, and had it up on the internet since 2016, and I've realised there's no number 12. Oh my God, that is so funny. I find that really funny. Maybe it should be like perfection doesn't matter, because clearly it does not. And a lot of people have read this blog post and no one has ever told me that before. So either people haven't noticed or they haven't cared enough to tell me. I just find that hilarious. Okay, so number 13 is there's no such thing as get rich quick or overnight success. Even the fastest growing companies take years to really get humming, and the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes to get to this point is insane. Sleepless nights, grinding it out every day. And then I talk a little bit about how I came from a high growth SaaS success story background, and the amount of hard work involved is more than most people would be willing to put in. That is actually very accurate. I think this is especially true online. Like, creating content and showing up on the internet sounds very easy to some people, but when you're in it, it's not easy at all. It takes a lot of work. Like, how willing are you to show up and do the work even when no one's watching, even when it's not working, to continually show up? And one thing that I think of when I'm talking about this is how all the kids these days want to be YouTube stars. Like, everyone who has a child, especially a boy, I think below the age of 12, they think they're going to be YouTube stars. And my son's now 17, so we went through this stage. And I remember saying to him one day when he was a little bit older, because I was kind of sick of hearing about this YouTube thing. Like, I'm like, do what, if that's what you want to do, go and do it. However, it's not easy and it's going to take a lot of work. And then we were looking at some famous YouTubers that he follows, and I'm like, these guys are relentlessly creating content. They'll be planning, filming, editing, marketing themselves. Like, what they see in the final product is just that. And there's so much more that goes on behind the process. And I think that if people realize the work that's going to go into a business, they probably wouldn't have started in the first place. And that is just the reality of it. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. And when it comes to online courses, I feel like a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to do that because it's so much work to create a course. And yes, it is. There's no doubt about that. Or what if I do all of that work and nobody buys? The reality is, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. That is a risk. And the amount of work that will go on behind the scenes that no one will see and you'll get no acknowledgement for is going to be there regardless of your industry. So it really is about having a really strong why and being committed to doing that work that you're not going to get patted on the back for by anyone a lot of the time. That's going to go unnoticed. So I just think with the age of the internet that the overnight success thing seems to be it's a facade. And even if people do literally blow up overnight, yes, they may get that initial bit of success, but to keep it is a whole other thing, right? To actually be able to sustain that for longer than even a few weeks after your business blows up for whatever reason, maybe you had something go viral. To be able to sustain that is a whole other thing. And I have definitely seen people in the online space who have absolutely blown up, had like $1 million launch for their first launch and then literally disappear because they just could not handle that level of success. So I don't even think an overnight success story is what you want, right? Because as I said, can you handle it? Can you keep it going? So this next one is one that I don't agree with the statement, but I agree with the gist of it, but I'd reword how it's written. So it's 14. Constantly selling annoys people. Yeah, so I definitely reword that. But then I go on to say, luckily sales have progressed in the last 20 years. You don't have to act like a greasy car salesman anymore. In fact, you will be successful without it. I'm constantly amazed by my own ability to sell, and there is absolutely no hard sell involved. I use an inbound marketing approach and it works wonders. Now, this is always how I've been, this is always how I have sold anything from my digital marketing services back then to my coaching to anything, right? And it's always worked really well for me, which is just about building relationships, having a chat, having a conversation around what I offer, and then people deciding to go for it. So I would reword instead of constantly selling annoys people, because I do also think that as business owners, we should ideally have something that where is always for sale. Even if we don't get there straight away in our first year or two of business, like we do want to get to that point where we always have something that is available to purchase. So I would change that to something around like selling in an authentic way that creates connection and is also like that kind of conversation. So the inbound marketing approach to sales, I would definitely change that one. Now, number 15, you still need to be prepared to sell. And yes, this is true. So you need to ask for the sale, tell people what you actually offer, and make sure that you're sharing calls to action on your content so that people know that there is a next step. Map out your services, like you can have an offer suite, and that allows you to also present the best offer to the right person. If you only have one offer, then you're only going after one person, but having a range of different products or services is great because some people will be interested in one, whereas for someone else, like there's nuance to it, right? And I'm not really just talking about online courses here. I believe that as an online course creator, most of you will also be doing some kind of consulting, one-on-one work, group coaching, whatever else alongside it. And that's like an offer suite. And that's something that I help people build out. And it's really important to me that people have an offer suite and they're just not going with one offer. I think those days, you do hear a lot of experts saying one offer only. And I don't know if that's that relevant anymore. I think that people do want something that's a little bit personalized. Maybe it could be one offer in terms of one online course or one group coaching program for sure. But most businesses will have other higher price products that's maybe private, or they might have like cheap, like low cost products as well. So back to the point, you just really need to be prepared to sell. Number 16, you do have to do the majority of the work at the start. So, and then I go on to say, I've seen people in Facebook groups asking what kind of business they can start where they can hire others to do the work for them from the start. Good luck is all I can say. I don't think I see this as much anymore, but yeah, occasionally I used to see people that would literally be like, how can I outsource everything? And just like hands off and I'm just going to make passive income. Doesn't really work like that. Yes, you can outsource, but it depends on your, what you're willing to invest. And like I said before, you are absolutely the CEO of your business, of your company, and you need to show up and take ownership of that. And the more that you do that, the better results you're going to get, as far as I'm concerned. So number 17 is don't overinvest in your first website. Keep it simple. So I did spend quite a lot of money on my first website and it absolutely did not work for me. In fact, I only got one inquiry from it ever. So as an online course creator, you don't need to have a website to launch. You absolutely don't. You don't need to get your website sorted before you can launch a course. It is absolutely not how it works. I actually shared a post on Instagram about this recently. There is no part of the launch funnel where a website is required. Yes, you need landing pages, but you do not need a website. So having that website set up perfect, saying the perfectly correct sentences all throughout is actually not going to get you any business at all. It's more of a place for people to go to build trust, and that can come in time. It does not need to be there right at the start. Yes, you can use blogging and whatnot to get SEO, and that can be amazing. And, if you're a blogger, then of course you do need a website. But most course creators are not bloggers. to create an offer, get it out there, make money, you do not need a website, okay? So that one is very much still true. Now, number 18 is your website will never be done, and it shouldn't be either. So this one does tie in with the last point a little bit. So I say in this, I've had a lot of clients who need everything to be at the point of absolute perfection before they launch their website. While I do understand this, generally it's more important to get it out there than making continuous changes. And obviously if you're hiring out your website and you want to keep making changes to it, that's going to be costing you money as well. So your budget may not allow for that. So the point that I make here is that you need to view your website as a constant work in process. There will be plenty of opportunities to upgrade a page here or there, fix some design, or tweak what you've written on another page. Now, number 19, bootstrapping is the time to figure out your audience and what they want. So it's scary to make that leap into business, and often you don't have the revenue coming in straight away. This definitely sounds familiar, right, as a course creator. So take this time while momentum is building up and you're building up your audience to really get to know your target market on a whole other level. That knowledge is going to come in super handy later on when you start creating offers, you do a launch and you start putting things out there. Number 20, and this is an interesting one. So you have to demonstrate your expertise up front before people will buy. That is still very true. And I go on to say so many people don't understand that providing free information is not about giving away your expertise for free. Oh my God, this is good. Instead, you are positioning yourself as someone that knows what they're talking about. It's your new sales tool. Try it. Oh, actually, I wish more people knew this. I feel like there's so much out there about just sharing sharing all your tips and content, sharing your best stuff for free, and then they'll automatically buy from you. That does not work. So instead, it's about using your free content to position yourself as the expert, and that's a very key distinction there. I love that one. I might have to turn that into a new piece of content. 21, doing will beat learning any day. Oh, so true. So it's so easy to get sucked down the hole of constant learning. I'm a huge advocate for personal and professional development, but there's a limit to how much your brain can take in. Focus on your area of expertise and nail it. Become the go-to expert in one thing and take action over and over again. Even if a strategy has worked for someone else, it might not work for you. You have to try it, test it, try it again. Tweak it. I've added that bit in because that's something that, now that I work specifically with people on online course launches and also a lot of funnels, like everything is a funnel, right? A launch is a funnel. Any evergreen strategy is a funnel. They're all funnels, and funnels need to be tweaked. Like you just don't set it up, go live, and then say this worked or this didn't work. You look at the data, you get the feedback that you need, and then you fix it, make tweaks, and then over time you get something that works amazingly well. So, but you don't get there if you are just going to learn and never implement. So taking action and actually implementing what you're learning is absolutely vital. Otherwise, you're just never going to see the results. 22, shiny object syndrome is a killer. Avoid it at all costs. That's so true as well. And often I find that we can think, oh, well, I've started that. It's not going as well as I planned. Oh, there's something else cool over there. And really what we're doing is just avoiding rejection, potentially making ourselves try and feel better because we may feel like something hasn't worked, that someone's rejected us, like that kind of, people do get really down when they put something out there and no one goes for it, right? So sometimes we can think, oh, that thing over there, that's going to work, or something new that someone has mentioned over there, oh, that's the answer. And then they may go and learn that and not implement it, the new thing, or they may actually implement it and they still get the same problem. It is actually about resiliency to say, well, sometimes things aren't going to work 100% as I planned. I need to look at the information, talk to what people want, and like I said before, tweak things and then retest. There's so much testing in marketing, It really is like a whole bunch of hypotheses. Like you think about big brands that put out advertising campaigns, they never really truly know how they're going to connect with people until they're out there, right? The biggest campaigns in hindsight, like no one knew when they were being developed that they were going to be huge, right? So it's the same with your marketing in your small business. As a course creator, you need to continually be tweaking, be doing the work really, and not running off to the next magical fairy dust thing that's come along. Okay. Now, 23, this is the final one, and this is action, and even imperfect action is everything. I just find this list so funny, right? I wrote this in 2016, and everything on this list is still talked about today. So hopefully you agree that it's mind-blowing how this was written in 2016 and it's still so on point. I think there's 2 there that I would change, okay? But I go on to say action will beat everything else, hands down. You can have all the money in the world, but if you're not willing to roll up your sleeves and build a business from scratch, you won't be successful. Even the wealthiest people in the world work a lot. There's a reason for that. Just get started today. And I also mentioned that the best is for last. So by that, I'm saying that action will basically override everything. If you take action and you're willing to do it again and again, then you will win. It's just a matter of when. And I also think we do see a lot of people nowadays who are hugely successful and could literally retire and you never see them again. They just go and live life, but they still work because that's their purpose and that's their fulfillment, right? They don't need to work for money anymore. And, you know, I think there's so many people that just come to mind when I think of that. So it's not about avoiding the work. The work is what's going to get you there, and taking action is absolutely vital. You can buy all the courses that you want. You can get all the advice that you want. You can have the best strategy. But unless you take action on it, you're actually never going to get any results. So I think that is the perfect one to wind down this episode on. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's totally different to ones I've done in the past. And I really hope you enjoyed the comparison between 2016 and now. Thank you so much for listening today. I am so glad to be back. I actually forgot how much I love sitting behind the microphone and chatting to you all. So yeah, happy to be here, and I'm happy that you've tuned in for this episode. Have a great week, and I will see you next week for the final episode of the year. Thanks, course creators and go-getters. You're incredible, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit subscribe in your podcast app so you don't miss an episode. If you'd like to find out more about what I offer, head across to loublakely.com. See you next time.